Harry Houdini.
David Blaine. David Copperfield.
The Davids.
Chris Angel.
Yep.
Michael Carducci.
I'm an illustrious company. You're a kind man.
All right. So nice to see you here at UberConf 2023. The inimitable Michael Carducci. So are you enjoying it this year?
Oh, UberConf is always a blast. Yeah. It is just... It's almost like a spa for the mind. It's the community here is so passionate. The speakers are incredible. It's one of the amazing things is there are no bad speakers here, and there's such a breadth of topics. And I don't know. There's a big debate, that I keep hearing in our industry about breadth versus depth. I'm on team breadth. And part of that is maybe because of the role that I'm in, that I do a lot of work in the architecture space, and you need that to be effective in the architecture space. But I don't know. I believe that breadth is important even as an individual contributor, that, we bring in all these different mental models we've developed in our life, these different experiences, this different knowledge that we've accumulated in different places. And sometimes it connects in unexpected ways and helps us solve problems. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think especially with how complex the landscape has become at this point. And I use this piece of data that's getting kind of old now, actually, from 2020 IDC research that actually showed the prediction that by last year, 65% of the global GDP digitally transformed.
Yes.
Staggering. 2/3 of the global GDP is now software, relying on folks like us, which is terrifying a little bit.
A lot.
So, but no, I'm with you on that, because, I think that if you know a little bit about database, a little bit about front end, a little bit about systems, a little bit about security, a little bit about network, you can dive into whatever you need to build the solution, but you'll always have a bigger, broader perspective.
Well, and I think you get different mental models in different spaces as well, and that can be really valuable. Are you familiar with the Cynefin framework?
The Cynefin framework. No, I always learn something new from you. Tell me about the Cynefin framework.
So the Cynefin framework, I'm not gonna do it justice, but it's by the way, it's spelled Cynefin. It's not spelled anywhere near what I think it's a Welsh word, maybe.
Oh, God.
I'm not sure, but it's a really interesting model for thinking about things. So there's 4 domains, 4 quadrants in the Cynefin framework. They keep changing the names, but I think it's the clear, the complicated, the complex, and the chaotic.
Ooh.
And it really emerged out of a realization that the solutions to problems that exist in that clear domain, the simple domain, the obvious domain, these are different names that it's been, they might work really well there, but they work very poorly in the other domains. Like where you're dealing with well-defined problems and kind of rules-based programming and things like that. Where you're dealing largely on just best practices, that's great. But when you're in the chaotic domain, best practices aren't going to, there are no best practices when you're in chaos. And when you're in the complex space where you're solving novel problems and things like that, there are no best practices for solving novel problems. And so what it really tells us is that we need to take different approaches in different domains. And this is why I think that breadth piece is so important, because when so much more, now that we're all digitalized and now everything's online and now we have software for everything, there's a natural tendency, natural progression that happens. We go from solving simpler problems to solving harder problems. And that's what we've done in technology and software. I learned to program on an Apple II, and a lot of the stuff I did was very, very low level. And we don't do any of that low level stuff anymore. And that didn't mean that the need for programmers went away. It meant that we were freed up to focus on harder and harder problems. And so in our industry, where now everything is digitalized, whatever that means, we're starting, some of the simpler problems are going away, and some of the harder problems are starting to show themselves. And those harder problems, I think, is where we start needing to rely more and more on that breadth, because we're bringing ideas and perspectives and mental models from different spaces, from different domains, from different disciplines. And that makes us more effective, I think, in the complex domain.
Well, that's, I think that is super fascinating. It's almost like an all-terrain vehicle, right? It's like no matter what whatever the conditions are, we can still kind of move forward with the problem. And that matches reality a little bit more than trying to. So you're saying that you compartmentalize into these 4 different sort of quadrants, if you will, and then each of those is going to have their own sort of set of, I guess, practices, design patterns,
approaches, philosophies, mindsets, all these different things.
Interesting.
It's I think some of it comes if I remember my history right, and please tell me all the ways I'm wrong in the comments, because otherwise I'll never learn. I know one of the examples was in military, like in combat theater, that there are different environments and how you approach it. Like trench warfare is very different from urban warfare, which is very different from guerrilla warfare. And the strategies that work in one don't always work in the other.
So, what it reminds me of is the Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom, because of the armor.
Okay.
The armor.
Anyway. I am sadly and shamefully not hip
Sorry, everybody.
to the Zelda world.
Long story short, Link gets different outfits. So if it's cold weather, he's got an outfit that'll help him out in the cold. If it's hot weather, he's got an outfit that helps him out in the heat, right? Stuff like that. So
now, I will say this.
I'd say it's almost exactly what you just said.
I am at least knowledgeable enough about the Zelda franchise to not call Link Zelda. So
there you go. That's a start.
Something. Yeah.
That's a start. You got my parents beat for sure on that. So that's something. So, all right. So Michael, they always load you up with a million talks because you're so great. What's your favorite talk that you're giving this UberConf? And I know that's a hard question. I'm asking you because if somebody asked me that question, I'd be like, wow, that's a hard question. But I want to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, right before UberConf or any big conference like this, there's always this sort of, week or two of white knuckle terror, because I start lying awake at night and realizing I don't think these talks say what I want them to say. And so I spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks, literally 12 hours a day, rewriting content. And the one that I was most happy with on the outcome was the topic that the first part of the talk that I gave on the topic of linked data. And linked data is sort of it's an umbrella term for a set of technologies that really changes how we think about data in terms of APIs, interacting with data, interacting with systems, integrating data. It really completely changes the landscape. But it's an old story, and it's a story that historically hasn't landed for a lot of audiences. And I realized that I've been giving this talk for a year or thereabouts at No Fluff, and I've been talking about it at organizations and things like that. And it's a hard story to tell. And I finally realized kind of a way to frame all of this set of ideas that might have enough context to make sense and tell the story of why they're valuable. And so I've been really excited about that. The surprise talk that I left so far that I felt best about was I just gave a talk on managing tech teams is the name of the talk, rules, tools, and insights. Now, I wrote that talk for Tech Leader Summit, and I had too much of the imposter syndrome, and I actually went into the No Fluff speaker portal, and I said, that talk, archive. We're gonna move that over there. It's not gonna get scheduled again. And then every now and again, Jay will surprise me. Jay, the organizer of UberConf, will surprise me and take that out of the archive and schedule it.
That's so classic Jay, isn't it?
But
he just walked by.
Well, he didn't notice too. I'm disappointed. But I literally walked past him right before this meeting. I walked past him and I said, Jay, you were right. And he says, about everything? I know. But I told him, I said, you're right. It was, I think the ideas behind that talk needed to incubate a little longer, just like the linked data talk.
Sure.
And in fact, conversations you and I had at UberConf last year
sure.
really changed the trajectory of all of that.
Oh, wow.
So thank you.
Honored. I'm honored. No, that's great to hear. And that's, again, that's why this is so important, right? To be able to have these types of, this is such a safe
really
environment for us to incubate things and really be, kind of bold about our ideas. I mean, that's one of the things that I think I really love about these conferences in particular. So that sounds good, and I won't get too wax too much on this one, but the imposter syndrome, I always look at that, I always think of that as a very healthy thing. When you contrast it to something like a Dunning-Kruger reaction, where it's like, okay, I know two things about a thing and now I'm an expert, right? That's super toxic, right? I would much rather see, because that means you're really thoughtful, that no, this is a huge topic that I'm talking about, and I really need to get this right. So I definitely appreciate that level of thought. So Well, cool. And now with managing engineering teams, that talk could go a lot of different ways. We both know that managing full-time engineers is an interesting layer of management. We've both done it, and you deal with different types of problems that you deal with in other areas. So maybe I'll ask you, not to go too far to left field, but maybe tell me, in your opinion, what's one of the best things about being able to manage a team of engineers? And then what's one of the most challenging things about managing a team of engineers?
Well, I think one of the best things is the idea that you're in a position where you can multiply your contribution. I mean, you can do that in any sort of leadership position, but in a management, you've got this extra veneer of authority, and you've got a little bit of more autonomy on how to structure the team, how to build the team. And so, the idea of creating something bigger than yourself, I think that's one of the best parts. It's a shift. It's a shift because you're moving from being responsible for the outcome to being responsible for the people who are responsible for the outcome. But if you can make them all stronger, and then, the big influence that I had to thank you for earlier was the infinite game, that you create a culture so strong and so positive that it continues after you're gone, after you drop out of the game. I mean, that's beautiful and scary.
Yeah, you dropped the Simon Sinek Infinite Game. For those who haven't read it, it sounds like become one of an inspirational book for you. Certainly an inspirational book for me. I highly recommend it. It's completely changed the way that I frame my own views on success and what I want to do with my life. So, light reading.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, I'm really glad that was influential. All right. Obviously, I can sit here and talk with you for hours, and we always talk about doing something together. We're going to figure that out at this show. So be warned.
Yeah, it's coming.
We're teaming up. But I'm not going to let you get away with this without a magic trick. So what have you got for us today?
I got to figure out how we're going to do this with the cameras and everything like that.
Okay.
But as I was wandering over there, Baruch said, "You have a deck of cards on you, right?" I said, "I always have cards." And so, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, man. I feel like I should have thought of this before we got here.
This is more challenging than anybody can write code.
That's the easy part. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do this. They're all there. They're all different.
Looks like a normal deck of cards to me.
For the most part. Yeah. So go ahead and just reach in and grab any card.
Any card I want.
Yeah.
Try to trip you up a little bit.
Oh, getting sneaky. And it doesn't matter if I see you, because you're going to show the camera, and I'm going to look at the monitor. And,
sure. In fact,
I'm going to cheat here.
Let's do that. And what do we got?
7 of diamonds.
All right.
Now let's keep me honest. Sign that.
Okay. Sure. Sign it.
Yeah. Sign it. That way we know that's your card.
Signing my name on the card, front or back.
On the face. Otherwise, it gets way too easy.
So, I have
do that a little
that's
more.
My chicken scratch, but I can recognize it.
All right. Let's switch back to the group view.
Sure.
And thank you for capping the pen. But when you're ready, just put it back in there somewhere.
Okay. All right. So you're not looking.
Yeah, I'm looking at the monitor.
I'm putting it back in the deck. Michael can't see what I'm doing.
I'm genuinely looking.
I'm switching this up so you really can't see it. Camouflaged. Okay.
Yeah. So it's well and truly lost. And people always ask me if I can find the card. And this is either going to go wonderfully or poorly. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Camera 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Carducci, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Awesome.